Welcome to the Scorebook Live football preview show. Lance Smith, Connor Morissette here at beautiful Notre Dame, Sherman Oaks. A little bit later, we'll be talking to quarterback Zach Siskowic as they prepare for their game against Servite. But Lance, if people don't know the show by now, we go through the best city section game and then the 5 best southern section games. How are you doing on a beautiful Tuesday evening?
Happy to be here. Happy we drove somewhere a little less far today. This is our first commute that was less than like an hour and a half. So beautiful place, beautiful day, ready to talk some football.
Absolutely. Let's start in the city section as we do. Servite is getting a ton of pub on this show, but they've played the biggest games the last couple weeks.
Yep.
So they host San Fernando in a massive Valley Mission League game last week. The question was, could little old Division II Canoga Park go into Servite and beat them? The answer was almost, but not quite, as Servite hung on and piled it on a little bit at the end and beat them by a few scores. But now San Fernando, it's a different beast. I don't think Servite has beaten San Fernando in the last 6 years. Coach Alonzo Ariola told me the winner is going to win the Valley Mission League, so it's a big one.
Yeah. With Servite, one of their best players is out, Trinell Rhodes, the wide receiver and member of their secondary. San Fernando, 4-0 this year, looking to stay unbeaten going ahead about halfway through the season. So they probably have the edge, but Servite did look really good against one of the most talented Canoga Park teams in a while. And they hung in there when Rhodes was out for the rest of the game. Obviously, they got Mario Martinez holding it down at receiver, so this should be a good game.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned it, Rhodes was ejected in the second quarter, and that looked like, when I was following along on Twitter, maybe they won't be able to overcome that. They do. If San Fernando wins this game, they will most likely, like 99%, finish the regular season undefeated. So that'll be a big game in that regard. Switching over to the southern section, San Clemente against Corona Del Mar. It's a great Orange County football game. The question I have here on my notes, can San Clemente stop Corona Del Mar's high-powered offense? Ethan Garbers, the great quarterback for CDM, John Humphreys, the great receiver. Garbers committed to Washington, Humphreys committed to Stanford. Bradley Schlom is a great receiver who's uncommitted for Corona Del Mar. And then Mark Redmond, Washington commit as well at tight end. They're just loaded. Everywhere you look, up and down the roster on that offense, they're very good. They lost to Grace Brethren last year in the D3 Southern Section Championship game. I think this is going to be a great game on paper between a Division III team, an upper echelon Division III team, and a team in San Clemente that might make Division I. It's going to be some high-level football.
Yeah, and it's pretty wild here to be in the LA Southern Section or Southern California Southern Section, where we have Division III teams like Grace Brethren or Corona Del Mar, Division III, and they are in probably the top 100 teams in the entire country. That's wild. When I was looking at their stats going into this game, I mean, we know they have one of the best passing attacks pretty much in the whole country, but some of the statistics themselves choked me up. Garbers, 1,376 passing yards and 20 touchdowns. It's been 4 games. Humphreys, 493 receiving yards. Schlom, 417. Redmond, 200 as a tight end, like you said. He's also a great blocker, one of the best tight ends in California. So they're going up against the San Clemente team that is more defensively oriented. They like to slow down the pace a little bit more. That said, they've mostly played inferior competition this year outside of last week when they beat Edison 28-21. Edison is great. So a lot of those earlier games were very high scoring because they were simply outmatched the other teams. But it's going to be interesting between one team that likes to really get out, play fast, and play up-tempo, and another team that likes to control the tempo in the other way. You're going to be lucky enough to cover this game, and man, it should be a fun one between two contrasting styles, two great teams.
Yeah, and that's on Thursday, not on Friday, so it's a little appetizer before we get to Friday. Upland at Mission Viejo. Lance, that is your assignment this week. We know Justin Flo for Upland. We know his brother Jonathan Flo, 2 of the best linebackers in the country. Justin, of course, had that crazy suplex tackle against La Habra. That play alone has gotten us over 100,000 views on our social media channel, so thank you. In the 21st century, that is very important. And for Mission Viejo, we know Maven Anderson, their great receiver. We know Peter Costelli, their fantastic quarterback. Chad Johnson, one of the greatest offensive minds in the area, so it's a real defensive against offensive battle. But again, I'll refer to my notes. I think Upland will struggle to move the ball against Mission Viejo's defense. Keanu Tawa Nuvasa and Lance Kennelly are 2 of the best defensive ends in Southern California. And if Upland can't run the ball, they'll struggle. That's kind of my prediction there.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a good game, but I think Mission Viejo is going to pull it out. Their Mission Viejo's defense is quite underrated. They just all departments of defense, they are excellent. Upland, they have been 3-0 since starting with that loss to La Habra, but I don't don't think they have enough offensive firepower, quite enough to compete with Mission Viejo. Mission Viejo also has probably the most underrated running back tandem in perhaps Southern California. Jaquez Robertson, already something in the vicinity of 450 rushing, almost said rushing touchdowns, 450 rushing yards, and then Tyson Scott. So I think they're a little bit too well-rounded, but it should be a great game. Upland certainly has a chance.
2 more games, Lance, before we get to our interview with Zach Siskowic here at Notre Dame. So Rancho Verde against Norco in a game in the IE. It's the battle of the quarterback. Sophomore A.J. Duffy for Rancho Verde going up against Shane Illingworth, who is a great quarterback for Norco, who he's up there with Ethan Garber, Zebby Eckhouse at Culver City, Bryce Young, putting up some crazy stats this year. And right here, who is going to put up more points? That's what I think is going to make or break this game. It's going to be a crazy shootout, as have been a lot of Norco's games. And A.J. Duffy's a sophomore. Illingworth is a senior. I think that gives Norco a big advantage. And just on paper, I think Norco has the better team. Rancho Verde's great as well, don't get me wrong, but I think Norco's special this season. They might have a chance to beat Corona Centennial. That's kind of a controversial thing to say in this neck of the woods, but they've looked that good so far, and I think Rancho Verde will be a little bit in over their heads, but that should be a great game.
Yeah, that should be a great game. I think Norco's going to pull away with it, but when you have A.J. Duffy, who, sophomore, like you said, almost 1,000 passing yards so far this season, not a whole lot of film and scouting reports on him yet.
Yeah, because he's so young,
Yeah, so that gives Rancho Verde a little bit of an advantage there, but Norco is stacked. I mean, like you said, they're an offensive team. They like to play in shootouts, but it's not like they don't have a defense. Just offensively, they have too many weapons. Illingworth, they have 2 Division I receivers in Marquise Ashley and Jaden Navarrete, and then they have one of the best breakout candidates of
your boy,
my boy Fernando Chairez. Shouts out, running back who is absolutely breaking out. Wasn't even a running back coming into this season, but in the past 3 weeks, he's had games with 4 touchdowns and 6 touchdowns. He's on pace for over 1,000 rushing yards this season. So far, coaches are not keying in on him. So I think Norco has too many weapons, but if they sleep on Rancho Verde and Rancho Verde brings their best defense, it could be a game.
As our friend Eric Sondheimer at the LA Times says, that's life at public schools. You might not think you have a running back, and then you put in the next man up, and that's what happens. The last game for our interview, Lance, Oaks Christian at Helix. This game I included because Helix, they've beaten the 2, on paper, best teams in San Diego and St. Augustine and Cathedral Catholic. How is Oaks Christian going to fare? A team that's been up and down. They beat Sierra Canyon, but they've suffered some losses. They had a tough one last week to Murrieta Valley, and then before that, they got blown out by Grace Brethren. So it's been an up and down beginning of the year for Oaks. If you go down and beat one of the top 10 teams in Southern California right now in Helix, because they've just played so well down there in San Diego, that'll be a huge resume-boosting win coming down the line. Which Oaks Christian team's going to show up? That's the question. They've been so banged up with injuries. Unfortunately, in the world of high school sports, we don't have an ideal kind of update. Jamison Wayne, their quarterback's been hurt, so they've been going with a backup. That's really hurt them. Mr. Williams has missed some time. That's 2 of their best guys. Alonzo Fontenette is still dealing with the sit-out period. He'll be back not this week, but the week after. So they're just missing some players, and we've seen that with the results. If they can come together and beat Helix, though, that's a big, big win, and that would throw our Scorebook Live Southern California rankings into a total frenzy. I would not know where to put Oaks or where to put Helix after that, if that's able to happen. But just with Elion Noah, the Helix great running back, I anticipate a Helix win, but Oaks has shown that they can hang with some good teams.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because I think they're kind of in the same ballpark. Both teams have a great chance, but Oaks Christian, in all due respect, has been arguably the most disappointing top-tier team in the Southern section so far this year. 2-3 is not what they anticipated. Like you said, they had the loss to Grace Brethren, then they got blown out in bad fashion to Alamany. Last week, I was convinced they were going to bounce back against Murrieta Valley, who's really good.
And they almost did. They were up 20 with 10 minutes to go, and they blew it.
Yeah, and that hurts. And then Helix is kind of a surprise team. I mean, a lot of rankings didn't even have them in the top 1,000 in the country coming into this season from what I saw. They're 3-1. Their only loss was to was
team from
Harriman.
Utah, yeah.
Harriman from Utah, who is really good. And then they beat St. Augustine, like you said. They beat Cathedral Catholic the week after Cathedral Catholic upset Corona Centennial. So that's a huge indicator.
Yeah, they beat him by a few scores.
Yeah, so this game has not only a lot of ramifications for the two teams playing, but if Helix pulls this out and if they really beat Oaks Christian badly, that's big for San Diego football as a whole. So this is a game to watch no matter where you're from in Southern California.
And the last few years, San Diego, they know how to beat up on Southern Section and LA City teams. Just ask Narbonne, just ask a few other teams who have been in the path of some of these good San Diego teams for a lot of times. It has not been very pretty, and we'll see if that continues. I just want to shout him out again. Elion Noah, he's already broken Reggie Bush's mark at Helix. He's an emerging senior running back. I think he might be the best running back in Southern California. I want to make sure I give him his respect. He'll be tough for Oaks Christian to stop, I think. Or I know he's the most important player.
Yeah, and I have my eye on some of these flies in our face who are not showing us our respect while we're in the middle of a show. But yeah, I mean, it's top level exciting.
It's time to discuss the last game, the game of the week. Notre Dame Sherman Oaks hosting Servite on Friday. We're here with Notre Dame quarterback Zach Siskowic. Zach, you were kind of thrust into the starting role with an injury to Cooper Meek, but you've taken on the job very well. Notre Dame's undefeated. What has Servite shown you on film that makes you think you'll have a chance this week?
I mean, they're a really aggressive team. They have a great coaching staff. I know a lot of their players. I play with a lot of them. But, we just have to stay consistent and play, just use our game plan to the best of its ability. So I think it'll be good. It'll be a good game.
So obviously you guys are one of the best teams, if not the best team in the Mission League. Servite, very good Trinity League team, and should be a good game, fairly even matched. Whenever you have a Mission League game against a Trinity League game, especially the more evenly matched ones, do those games take on a particular meaning, or is there a different vibe, more anxiety, anything about it to you guys going into those games?
I mean, it's fun to be a part of, but, every game I think we go in with the same mentality of just being aggressive and executing all of our game plans and, just playing to the best of our ability every week.
Zach, you play for a legendary coach. Kevin Rooney's been here for 40 years. He's a guy that if I was in high school and I played here, I'd want to play for. What's it like playing for such a legendary coach?
It's amazing, especially with all the experience he's had. I've soaked up a lot of knowledge from him, and it's really helped me with my growth as a quarterback and, being able to lead this team. So it's been amazing.
And one last question. Last game going into league play, does that give this game an extra significance? And if you come up big, does that affect your mentality going into league? If you lose, does that affect your mentality at all?
I mean, either way, we're just going to go in with the same mentality every week, just being aggressive, just pounding the ball down their throats and just get into the end zone. So no matter what happens, we'll be good.
And Zach, I'll ask you one more. Again, Cooper gets hurt, so you come in. The plan was for you to play anyway, but now you're playing a lot more. Who on the receiving core has helped you kind of get up to speed and has been a friend to you on this team? Someone who, okay, it's 3rd and long. I know I can go to this guy and it'll be effective.
I think, all my receivers are amazing. They run great routes, very reliable. Sean Guyton's our, a big play guy that we love to go to. But, I think we're really, really diverse and we have a lot of good receivers that we can go to. So it's good for me and our game plan. So.
That's Zach Siskowic here at Notre Dame Sherman Oaks. Huge game Friday, taking on Servite, Trinity League against Mission League. That will be a really fun one. He's Lance Smith. I'm Connor Morissette. Zach, thanks so much.
Thank you for having me. Thanks.